Well, we have a wonderful crowd here today, Odile.
Amazing. And it's
amazing.
because of your birthday.
No.
But also because of all the people you know.
You were not.
All your friends.
You were not supposed to do that. But anyway, I am so pleased to introduce Odile Hellier, who I first came to know just a tad because of the Village Voice Bookshop. And that's what her book is all about. So let me just introduce her this way. She was born in the south of France during World War II and raised in the two different regions of Lorraine, near the German border, still haunted by past wars, and Brittany, fronting the Atlantic Ocean. After advanced studies in Russian language and literature, she taught in high school for 2 years. She decided to broaden her scope and work in world organizations. During the fall of 1968, that was a hell of a year, right? No pun intended.
Yeah.
Hellier enrolled in a professional school in Paris that trained translators and interpreters in international relations. She worked for 10 years as an English-French translator in Washington, D.C. She returned to France at the end of 1979, and 2 years later, in July 1982, she opened the Village Voice Bookshop on Rue Princesse, just off the bustling Boulevard Saint-Germain. Over the next 3 decades, the blue-shuttered shop would become one of the most famous English-language bookstores in Paris, a vivacious hub for artists, writers, and a haven for Anglophone literary life. And I can attest to this because I was there many times for many of the readings and events that took place there, which she describes very well in the book. So by reading Odile's book, it really brought back these amazing memories. It was just incredible. After its closing, which was very sad to all of us, Odile found herself with hundreds of tapes of various talks given at the bookshop by the greatest artists of their generation. And so Village Voices, a memory of the Village Voice Bookshop Paris, came to be.
Yes.
Okay, and
thank you for this beautiful introduction.
Oh,
yes,
well.
Thank you so much. And I want to thank many writers who are in the book who are here. And some could not come, but some are here. And I really thank them because it was, it's really something that moves me to see them more than 20 years later around, they are friends, and still living in Paris, and it's really amazing to me that here I am, almost 30 years later, and we have the same friends in the room as we had.
Would you introduce them?
Yes, of course I will. You know, I fear that I may not remember, or see everyone, but here is Marilyn Hacker, one of the great poets we had.
Everyone know that name, Marilyn Hacker?
Yeah, Marilyn Hacker. She is in the book, and she was really the person who we wrote, about Paris as nobody else.
I didn't even realize that this
it
was Marilyn.
Marilyn
Because
Hacker.
I've been at your readings.
Yes, and of course she has written many books about other subjects. But Paris, so many people say to at the end of the reading of the Marilyn, you just give us the desire to discover Paris again. Mm-hmm. So beautiful were our descriptions of Paris, and not the usual one, not the ones you see, in the guides. Of course not. And it was really all nuances. So I'm so happy that Marilyn's here because she lives also in America, and since the Village Voices years, she has translated many books from the Arab world, poets from the Arab world, and but it was really a feat to read you after those years. Yes, and of course we have here a person with Dennis Herson, and Dennis Herson is so many. I have so many things to say about him, but he's a very good friend, of course.
He's blushing.
And he has been one of the persons at the helm of the Village Voice. He was not just a writer who wrote so many books and presented the books, but he was also a person who was there all the time to really speak about the voice, to really do things about it, to really project, as you projected the voice to so many people in the world. And so Denis is a writer of South Africa, during the apartheid and after the apartheid. During the apartheid, he has extraordinary stories about his childhood in South Africa, and in those stories, very delicate, like little bit of poems, bits of remembering, but also very delicately, you have the shadow of his father, who has been imprisoned in the high walls of the government at the time, the apartheid. But this is very delicately done. And then after the apartheid, he was still living in Paris and lives in Paris, and so was able to introduce the people he knew in South Africa, and who had been either in exile or who had come out of the prisons, and other people, younger people, who are now discovering South Africa, where there were so many hopes, difficulties, but also so many hopes. And Denis has been one of the pillars of the Village Voice, and I would like us to really applaud him. Yes.
Wow. Thank you for being here. Thank you both for being here.
Yeah, and I see also Gwen Edelman. Gwen shares a life between Paris and New York.
Who's this?
Gwen Edelman.
Gwen
She's
Edelman?
also in the book.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. and Gwen has written 2 books about memoirs of the Holocaust.
Wow.
Of the Holocaust, part of her family, not family, but friends and so on. And she has beautifully written this as a novel. They are novels. They are not just a history, but novels. And she has done a tremendous job. And as well, she was someone who tried to launch a little magazine at the Village Voice. And I remember that. And we were so busy, I was so busy that I could not, keep on, writing a few things or so on. But, she was also a very good person for the Village Voice,
So we have an illustrious crowd here, don't we?
Well, it's amazing. It's a Village
Yeah.
Voice together with so many customers we had. So the customers were part of the family.
It's a reunion of sorts.
It's a reunion, and I thank you because thank you because you invited me to those afternoons, Apre Midi, Adrian's Apre Midi, and I thank you very much for doing it, and I'm very happy to be here and to have all of you around me, listening to me. So I will just start by saying that in general, it will come back in my talk, but in general, this book talks about writers. We go back to 30 years back, 40 years back sometimes. Writers, even more, in the 20s for some of them. But writers who speak to us today. And this I really want to say it because I was rereading, the tapes and, trying to, when I closed the Village Voice, I knew that I had, taped the writers, not all of them, but many writers. And what happened, that I had boxes and boxes and boxes of tapes that I had never re-listened. And when I started, going through the people, I remembered well the readings. I really knew.
You taped all of the readings?
I taped the readings, and it was, on the corner of the table. And I knew that most of the readings, most of the tapes, would be, like inaudible or faint or not good, But anyway, I would tape them. I don't know, maybe I had some, I don't know why, but I taped them because I felt that those voices have to be remembered. I could feel that. And so I taped them, and boxes and boxes. When I took everything out of the bookstore, it was not just books, but it was also the tapes, And so the tapes and many other things, as a matter of fact. But the tapes, then, what to do with that. So my first idea was, of course, they do not belong to me, they belong to the authors. And be aware of that, that those tapes belong to the authors. It is their voices. And those tapes, I felt that I should send them to an archive, a special archive for podcasts, for to share, with people who love literature and who would like to know what happened at the Village Voice with all these authors. We had extraordinary authors, and so I re-listened to some of them, not to all of them, but I re-listened to some of them. And when I started listening to those tapes, I really felt that it was extraordinary. And what was extraordinary, it was not just the voices of the authors, it was the dialogue, the conversation that happened in those days, And this was extremely important. I felt that it was that was important, because it was not just a presentation by the author who was reading his book or parts of his book. It was really immediately the audience, and we had a fantastic audience.
It was standing room only.
It was a bilingual audience, and really fantastic. And they would come regularly and so on to listen to the authors. And it was a community almost. Of course, it was above, beyond the community as well. But there was a community, and the questions that were asked. And I'm sure that if I ask you or Denis or si jamais, if you were asked, you would say, that they were very interesting questions that forced the author to go beyond what is a presentation, just a presentation. And so when I read that, I said, no, it's impossible to forget those voices. It's impossible to leave them in the, not remember, but you have to remember those voices. And how to remember them? It was, of course, to send them to an archive, perhaps. But for me, I was already, not tired of the brouhaha of our world, with all those tapes and so on, the music and everything. But I really wanted to create something that would translate those voices also, to make them part of the community, of a book that would, speak about kind of a community, about the kind of people who were there, over the year. Different, of course, because 30 years is a long time, different, of course, but this was my intention to really
So is that the reason you wrote the book?
This is the reason. There are many reasons, but this one is probably the first reason why I wrote the book. That I really wanted, first, those voices not to be lost because they spoke to me. And second, those voices were also the voices of the people in the room, of the people who is in the audience, and these, I did not say the names because I even did not know the names, so I did not write down the names.
No, she didn't know who I was at all.
But
no, I was just bad in the background, doing whatever.
But they are there. Those voices are there, and they are part of the whole book itself. Yes.
So why? Okay, let's go back though. Why did you open the bookshop?
Alors, why I opened the bookshop?
Yeah.
It's
why and how?
Yeah. Yes. Okay. So this, if you want me to know how I opened the bookshop and how I did open the bookshop,
it was an English language.
It was
bookshop.
English
That's
language,
an
exactly. So I have to speak a little bit about my personal life. And personal life, it means a lot of zigzags. Like it's not a straight walk. And so I will say that first, as you said, I was born during the war, And during those years, my father was already in the resistance, and it was in Montpellier. And then we traveled. My parents traveled, from Montpellier to Clermont-Ferrand, and then to Brittany. We were in Brittany in '44. I was 2 years old when my father was killed in the resistance. I was a resistant fighter. And then after that, my mother was from Nancy, as you said, the other side of my family was from Nancy, and she took her 3 children back to Nancy. She had to reorganize. Her life, and her life was, she had to share her life between Nancy and Paris, and she trusted her children to her mother. So we were raised by my grandmother. And I'm telling you, raised by my grandmother, there was a big garden and everything, and animals, yeah. But definitely, there were no stories. And when writers or maybe even booksellers are interviewed, I love to listen to interviews of writers on the radio and so on. Often they say, it seems to me that the stories that my parents told me when I was a child, or the books I read as a child, it seems to me that they may have had an impact on my calling, for it. And so, for me, it was not the case at all. No books at all. I don't remember books. I mean, really, no. They were, animals, cats, dogs, everything, big garden, and yeah. But I don't remember books. But in '51, my mother went back to Brittany to be closer to the family of my father, and then the house became filled with books. And so it's when I was 9 years old, and it's when really I started reading books, but not children's books, just the books that my mother read, and that my elder sister read. And my elder sister was 5 years older than I was. So she was very, very important. She played a big role in my education, in my literary education, or my education. So this was very important. And then I read, these books, I remember I still have them on my shelves. I traveled a lot, but I still have them on my shelves because they are books that were part of the family. And you would say that today they are the classics of the 20th century. This is what, it is.
But mostly French classics, no?
French classics, absolutely, French classics. So my first job was to teach Russian, nothing to do with American language yet,
No,
the English, nothing. My English came from when I was in the summer, starting at, when I was 17, I would go to England to be with children, to take care of children, and also to work in the fields. I loved the fields in England, and they would get young people, students and so on, to work in the fields. Strawberry fields, potatoes, and I really liked it very, very much. So this is how I learned a little bit of English. English, let's say, I learned English. But really, my first job was Russian, to teach Russian. And Russian did not exist at all in the schools in Brittany. In Brittany, no, I was in Brittany in Saint-Brieuc, and there was no schools to teach Russian. But this was the mother of a school friend, who had come with her parents from Russia in the 20s, when it was a big immigration of Russian people to Paris. There was a huge...
What years was that?
It was in the 20s, so she was now the age of my mother, probably. Thought she was maybe 50 or something like that. And she saw my interest when I was at her place. She saw my interest because there were books, and I was looking at the books and so on. And she says, "But Odile, do you read? How can you read?" I said, "No, the Greek helps me to read, and my Greek was what I studied at the lycée." So she said, "I can teach you Russian." Oh, I was so happy. So it was every Saturday. I would go to this Natasha, and we would read the classics together, Russian classics. So this was my profession for 2 years. And then in 68, let's speak about 68. In 68, I was in Avignon attending the theater, the Avignon Theater. And suddenly I heard, or I was told, that Russian tanks had invaded Prague in Czechoslovakia. And this was horrifying to me because it was the repetition of the invasion of Hungary in '56. And so I have to admit as well, so during my student year in Russia, in Moscow, definitely my eyes were open, to the realities of the country. And the realities of the country in 64, 65 were even worse than in 63, 64 because Khrushchev was remercié, thank you very much, Mr. Khrushchev, you can go back to your bed or whatever. And Brezhnev came on, and Brezhnev was ready to go back to the Stalinist years. And this is how you have many poets, Russian poets, who were sent that year to the camps, to Siberia. And you know about Brodsky, for instance, the poet Brodsky, who was sent in 65 when I was there. So I had already a tiny feeling, that Russia was not going to open up as we were hoping for, So I felt no. I'm thinking, immediately I sent my resignation. I was forever, a teacher, but I sent my resignation, and it was, rejected, of course, but I stuck to it. And then, since I was, I felt, that I was more and more. It was the Cold War, remember? I was more and more interested in world affairs, and so I thought of HEC, jeune fille. At the time, it was not the 70s or the 80s, so it was the 60s, and there was a section of HEC, which is a school, business school, that was
what is the
HEC
stands for?
C'est Hautes Écoles d'études économiques. Voilà. And so HEC, it was not at all my type of school, for me, but they were training translators and interpreters for world organizations, and so I was admitted. So yeah. The second year, during the second year of my training, I was offered a job in the States, and it was to be a translator for a business company, for a French-speaking but foreign business company that was looking for a translator. And so I took the job. And I went to Washington, D.C. It was based in Washington, D.C. And it was a very interesting job. And I worked there for 10 years. After 10 years, that company went back to where she was coming from. And it was Algeria. So you can imagine all the various things that happened, being French in America, working for Algeria. It was very interesting. It was not as bad as it is now between France and Algeria, because they would never have accepted me, so or asked me to come, And so I worked there, and back to France. I could not believe how dull the country was. I had left in the 60s, late 60s, I had left a city that was bustling, and suddenly was coming back, and really the job was as bad as the job I had now, presently, recently, the new job I had. And it was, I could not stand it. I mean, it was not for me, and it did not make any sense to me. So here I was, wondering what to do. it was really coming back from the States, like where do I go, etc., etc.
Did you come back to Paris?
And I was in Paris, yes, for personal reasons, for family reasons. I was in Paris, and it is, like stimulus, looking for stimulations. Wanted to something to stimulate me, to give me an answer, to my questions and so on. I browsed through and went and in the Anglophone bookstores. And of course,
what were the bookshops at the time?
At
Shakespeare?
the time, Shakespeare a little bit. George was there,
Right.
a little bit. Yes, of course, a little
George
bit.
Whitman.
I knew him even before going
Right.
to America. Yes, George Whitman. I would go there to get my books in English. And also there was Galignani, of course, and
Galliani.
Smith.
Smith.
Essentially, yeah. And so I was there. And they were mainly English books. I mean, English literature. It was not at all the books I had seen in America, because in the meantime, in America you had such flourishing literature, throughout the country. So I just thought, well, there's something missing here, and this is how, that little music came to my mind. Why not open a bookshop? And a bookshop with a cafe, with a corner, that would be a cafe, as I had known in America, and with, stimulating, author readings as I had known in America. So America was my model in that respect, and I really wanted to create something American, and especially also because of the Village Voice. The Village Voice in America, was for me essential.
The newspaper?
The newspaper, the magazine, the weekly magazine.
Is that how you took the name?
Alors, the name, yes, the name I took it because of the Village Voice newspaper, magazine, and for many reasons. The first one was, for me, it was the voices of the authors. Voices, okay, so the voices. Second, it was the fact that I was reading a lot of papers when I was in America. It was my job to read papers, the New York Times, the Washington Post, which at the time was extremely good. And really, it was a very good paper. And others, of course. And but then I was also reading the Village Voice, and this was my pleasure. Because the Village Voice, it was a different regard, a different look at the domestic events and the international events, but also it was the guide to my discoveries, cultural discoveries in New York, and it was also, something I loved very much. It was the classifieds. They were so fun, so fun. Now classifieds don't exist anywhere, in the
Online.
magazines, online a little bit, but they're serious, don't they? Aren't they? I believe so. Yeah. But this was so full of humor, it was really fantastic. So I never missed the classifieds, never missed the classifieds. But also the street. In Paris, Princesse, la Rue Princesse, was a narrow street, and it was a village. At the time, you did not have those bars. At the time, you have, boutiques, the petite boutiques, but interesting, but petite boutiques. So it was really a village. And so
that street's gotten very chic lately. Have you seen
yes,
it lately?
Yes,
I go down it all the time.
Oh, really? Okay.
I do.
And
I
so,
pass the store all the time.
Yeah, and so because of the village, it looked like a village, the title imposed itself on me. And so what do I do now? Well, I call the Village Voice, because they had to, give me, they had to give me permission. So I called them, and so the bookstore was not open, of course. I called them, and I said, could we use your name for a bookstore? And they says, we are going to check, the legal. And then they called back 3 days later, and they said, Of course you can.
Really? This is already surprising to me.
But immensely
I mean,
surprising.
honestly,
Everyone around me told me, Odile, don't count on it.
Right, don't count on it.
No, don't count on it because it's impossible, really impossible. It's just, they just said, not a magazine, a bookstore, yes. And here I have something to show you and to go around. They were extraordinary because for the opening of the bookshop in October, I opened the bookshop in July, and the opening, the great opening,
July,
was
what year?
It was 1982, and the opening, the great opening, was in October. And I received, and I really want to pass through this around because really they are part of my treasures. Excuse me. Yeah, and they sent me a whole batch of caricatures, and one of them is here in the book.
These are the caricatures?
Yes. Okay, but there are many different caricatures. So already I could feel, that there was something going on between us. That it was not just a name, do whatever you want. No, it was really, there was a feeling about, okay, this is a bookstore and they are selling our paper because of course I promised to sell the paper and it was obvious.
Well, of course.
Yeah, so they were really fantastic.
But you must have touched them in some way.
Okay, so this, you go here about 15 and you have a look because it's fun to look.
These aren't the originals,
caricatures.
are they?
No, they are not.
Okay,
Well,
good.
see, you see. The originals are here. But I trust you. I trust you all, that
Take care, please.
So these were fun to me, and also they sent, those Village Voice aprons that paper boys used to wear, and so on. So I still have some at home, those
Okay, so they
very
saw
old.
this as a way to promote the Village Voice.
Well, it was to promote the Village Voice, but as well, but it was really fun. And then every year you would have the critics of jazz of the magazine who would come to Paris to probably write about the jazz scene in Paris and to be part of it. And then they would come, and each time, they would go around joking, laughing. They were fantastic. They were extraordinary. And every year they would come to our bookstore, and it would be fun. And then suddenly they would go out, happy that we are selling well their magazine. So it was a very good relationship. And this was, for 30 years. It lasted for 30 years until I closed. And so this is to answer your question.
I want to. I'd like to show a few of them.
Yeah.
To the audience, we can hold a few up.
Yeah.
Let's see. You want to choose some of your favorites?
I know. This is the book. In the book, so you have the French,
The Village Voice.
The Village Voice.
Who did these caricatures?
It's Le Prince. His name is Le Prince. Prince Apre. So when I tried to get the right to publish this,
the voice of the village.
Yeah, no, but it's very, very funny, and of course it's
these look like originals.
It's really the divide, the cultural divide, as we say, and so he played with on that cultural divide. They are fun and very happy. But when
Charles de Gaulle.
When I tried to ask the Village Voice, to publish this in the book, there is one in the book here. To publish it, I never got the answer from the Prince Apre. So I believe that the Prince Apre may have been, I don't know where, so it's probably not the name.
At the Empire State? Empire State?
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of Eiffel Tower in there, okay?
Yeah, exactly. But also the village, there is also the village, the small things,
These are fabulous.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. And Indian feathers made of Eiffel Towers.
Yeah, yes.
I love that.
yes.
But these are the originals.
Yeah, well, it's what I received. You know,
I know, but Odile,
yeah.
this is delicate stuff.
Yeah, that's why
We should not be handling them. They're gold. Okay, they're gold.
I want you to see them. I mean, really, you know, I want you to see them. Yeah.
This one's very special. You should have these framed and hung up on your.
Yes, in my corridor or something like that. No, have a look because I want to share this with people. You know, I want to share. You know, so.
Enter at your own risk.
No, but I respect a lot. You know, I have plenty of things I respect, but I want also to share.
Well, okay, thank you, but please take care. Okay.
Yeah. So the way I opened the Village Voice.
Yes.
So, you know, you know, this was my idea, and then suddenly I was facing a void. You know, what to do, where to turn. You know, and so I was facing a void. And I remembered of something I thought was as an American motto, but I believe it was only mine, I don't know. And I said, dare to imagine and do it. And that's how I started writing the project. Yeah, and that was it. And the village was 2 years of hassles, certainly. And then the Village Voice opened its door in July 1982. And that month I turned 40.
So it was your 40th birthday present to yourself.
To myself.
Okay,
exactly,
and this is an economic question.
Yeah.
How did you raise the money because you had to buy inventory?
Yeah. Okay, so this is a very good question because, you know,
it's not on the list, by the way.
Yeah, no, it is not. Without money you cannot do much, of course, you know. So you don't go very far. Okay.
You need inventory.
So I was lucky, very lucky, and I'm still lucky because we are very close friends. In Washington, I was doing things with the Corcoran of Arts, and I wanted to write scenarios. You know, it was film scenarios and so on. And I met, you know, the only European woman who was there was Gloria, whom I thank, you know, in the book, was Gloria. And she was Spanish, but lived in America. Her husband was at the World Bank, and so on and so on, the kids and so on. So, Gloria. And Gloria, very close friend, and, you know, very close. We did small films, you know, for our children, and so on. We spent nights, you know, talking, doing things, and so on. Anyway, so Gloria. And then when I came to Paris and when I had this idea of a bookstore, I talked to people around, of course, you know, what do you think? And everyone told me, Odile, you know, it would be good for you. I mean, it's something that I see, well, you know, I did not myself, but, you know, the reaction of people, they were saying, oh yes, it will be perfect for you. So I approached my friend, and she said, Odile, just look around. And I knew where I wanted to look around. I really wanted to be in Saint-Germain-des-Prés. And Saint-Germain-des-Prés because it was the place that had, you know, the literary memories of
starting
the 20
with Shakespeare.
Years. Voilà, exactly. Yes. Mm-hmm. So it was really that, and also it was where the French publishers were. Mm-hmm. In Saint-Germain-des-Prés. Now they are scattered all over, but they were in Saint-Germain-des-Prés. And for me, it was my youth in Paris. I was in Saint-Germain-des-Prés, Chambre de Bonne, certes, but still, it was Saint-Germain-des-Prés. So it was my youth. And so I really want to be there. And for me, I could not imagine a bookstore that would not be there. So she said, okay, look, yeah. And I found, so it was a time when Mitterrand had come to power. And when people who had much money had gone away. And so it was a restaurant. Well, the place I found, you know, to let, was a restaurant, Rue Princesse. It was the one really I felt would be good for us because there were 2 floors, so it was really nice. And it was in a terrible shape, terrible shape. I even don't describe to you, but they were, it was horrible. So, they had left without even taking out, the fish in their casserole. I mean, it was absolutely horrible. And pigeons, dead pigeons. I mean, so you had to really want the place in Saint-Germain-des-Prés to get it. And so I called Gloria. She was in New York, and I called her. And I said, I believe I saw something, And she said, Odile, I cannot come now. But her husband was in Africa and was crossing Paris, was going to be in Paris. And he said, call Diego and he will be there. And Diego came. He saw the place. I had the other person, like a
with or without the dead pigeons?
Well, with the dead pigeons. Oh, yes. And he said, Odile, and no, he did not talk to me. He told to the person who was showing the place, he said, is the place, the agent, thank you, is the place for sale? And she says, I'm going to check. And very quickly, it was a person who was very famous in Paris and who wanted to get rid of that place. And so she got, it's Gloria who bought that place. She bought it. She bought the place to rent it as a bookstore.
For you, basically.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So, this is one of the flukes in
la
life.
chance.
Yeah,
oui.
It's not even, it's a one chance. But, it happens, for people who, it happens. So you have to trust, or you have to be, I don't know.
It was meant to be.
It was meant to be. I don't know about that. I don't know about meant to be, but it's
it
definitely
was part of the plan.
Yeah,
clearly.
but it's definitely something that I don't know. It happens. It happens. There are some miracles like that. They do happen. I'm sure that in this room, many people or some people have also miracles that happen in their lives in spite of everything. So this was my. A miracle, and we are very, very close friends. So it never disappeared. Yes. So.
Okay. Now, meanwhile, you're filling the shelves with books.
Yes.
Okay. So then, now you've got all these books written by all these amazing authors. And when did you decide to start the readings? Was that something you did right away?
Right away.
As a way to promote the shop as well.
As way. For me, I did not think of promotion.
Okay.
I thought of
I'm
pleasure.
marketing. I can't help it. Okay.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Yeah. But for me, it was, I really wanted immediately. French publishers had names. I don't remember now the names. But had names. They wanted to be at the bookshop. So immediately, probably a week after I opened. We had, very quickly. We had Ginsberg, Ferlinghetti, not even 2 months, not even 1 month after, And so before Ferlinghetti, I had the theater, the Living Theater at the bookshop, right away. 2 weeks later, so it started right away.
So who chose the authors to speak? The publishers or you? How did that work?
So I would say that again here, it's a complex, but it's the way it is, and it also this also may lead me to speak about the closing of the bookshop. Okay, so. Very quickly, first of all, the first part, I'm going to say that. There are 4 parts in the book. The first part was about all the writers in Paris at the time. And those writers were, the people, the young people who had come to Paris, away from Reagan, and to try, in Paris, the Mitterrand's government, that is, the left. Mm-hmm. But the left, had such an inflation So in fact, the dollars they had in their pockets, all these young people, the dollars was traveling very far. So this was good for them as well. And they were very highly
It was like
educated.
10 francs, I think it was like 10 francs to the dollar at the time.
At the time,
so the dollar was
exactly.
very strong.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
remember those days when
Exactly.
I was a tourist here and buying
But
things.
yes, but it explains why you had so many young people, educated people, highly educated people, who came to Paris, and immediately they invested. They took the Village Voice as a home away from home. It became their home, and they started writing, publishing, inviting people they knew from America. It was incredible. The ambiance was absolutely fantastic. I was very lucky in that respect, and it was immediately. So you had these people who were repeating in a way the 20s with Hemingway. They admired a lot. I mean, they were educated and they admired a lot Hemingway, because Hemingway was the person who transformed the American language, and it was the modernist writing, and so they were, but they did not want to repeat, those 20s. So they did not want to repeat that. And so, for instance, the 20s, it was Paris. For them, it was the world. And all their magazines they published, it was about the world, open to the world. And this was very interesting. It was a big difference. On the other hand, in the 70s, American women scholars, realized that, but where are the women in those 20s, in the lost generation? Where are the women? And the women, for the moment, did not exist, although they did exist at the time, and they wrote in Paris and were part of the great salon in Paris. There were 3 salons, but we did not hear about them. All the people I had, for instance, when I opened the Village Voice, the 20s were back, and it's amazing the number of books, biographies, essays about the 20s, and so where are the women? They were there as well, but where? And so scholars, feminist scholars, started to get into the archives and to dig out extraordinary names. And in fact, I have this here as well. So we, I believe so. And so they came in the 80s, and very quickly, in the 80s, at the beginning of the bookshop, they came to present their biographies of these women. And so this is why I opened the book with Paris was a woman, because it was the reality as well. And I borrowed the title from Andrea Weiss, who is a filmmaker. Yeah, and so this gives you all the names, about 20 names of the women who really wrote in Paris, really were in the salon, having the pleasure of meeting all that elite, that European elite that was also coming to Paris in the salons and so on. It was a very rich period. So you can pass this around as well to have a little bit of the look at the names.
Women of the left bank.
Yeah, the women of the left bank, exactly, near 1990.
So name a few that we might know.
You had Sylvia Beach, for sure.
Sylvia Beach, right?
For sure. You had what are the names I have in my book? Yeah, Gertrude Stein, but this is not there. Yes, you had as well. I talked about the salon. C'était des salons surtout, and it was very important for me to. I don't have the names here right there, but
Gertrude Stein.
Gertrude Stein. But she was not so much part of that. She was very much with the men, definitely, because the fact that the lost generation it was a name that was it's Gertrude Stein who found the name for Hemingway. Yes, yeah. So these women, yes. I'm sorry because the names escape me right now, but I worked on these women, at the time when we opened the Village Voice. And so this was important. And then because of this energy that was created by all these people, other people came, and it was a time when journalists called it the rise of a literary force. That is, they were not anymore young people and so on, but there was also a force, and this was represented by Diane Johnson.
Diane Johnson.
By Diane
Everyone
Johnson.
know who Diane Johnson, the author?
Yeah.
Le Divorce, Le Mariage.
Mariage. Edmund White, of course,
Edmund White.
Yes, he was there. Sedaris was there.
That was one of my most favorite.
Yeah, Sedaris. And others. So Gopnik was there as well.
Adam Gopnik.
Adam Gopnik. Yes. So they were there, and so the great theme at the time, because there were so many American people in Paris, so many French as well, of course. So it was, the cultural divide. The big theme of literature was the cultural divide, So you would present, the authors would talk about, what the French do and what us Americans do, or the way we think and the way we,
We're still having this conversation because the divide still exists.
Yes, exactly. The divide exists, but it could be that at that time it was a little bit new or something like that, because the last generation, they were not speaking French. They were basically speaking English, or American. So, but now it was really people speaking, Americans speaking French as well. There was a mix, a greater mix, and today as well, I believe it's a greater mix. I don't know. I would think so. Yeah. Anyway,
there's still an unbelievable number of American authors here. And almost everyone I know is a writer. I see a lot of you in this room. Right now.
I'd just like to mention a wonderful non-American English-speaking writer whom I knew through the Village Voice, and that was Mavis Gallant.
Mavis Gallant, of course, but Mavis was, of course, Mavis, of course. But Mavis, she had, Mavis was Canadian. And she had lived all her life, practically, adult life in Paris. And Mavis, I have a big piece about her, and you have as well, written about her. Of course, you are very close to her. And Mavis Gallant, unfortunately, she's very well known in literary circles, but she's not there in the bookstores. It's in America, yes, but here she's not very well known. She used to be at one point. She used to be. When she left. But now I don't hear much about Mavis. But Mavis was an immense author of stories. And she was, Mavis, of course.
Her work has been translated into French.
She has been. She has been translated. But at the time, when
she was alive, she was translated.
When alive, but not so much. Many. It started with a story about 68. I remember that she was not known, and 68. It was already, the 80s. When I met Mavis, I could feel the sadness that she was not recognized in France. It came along because Stephen was there as well, to promote, Mavis and to do a lot of things for Mavis. But Mavis Gallant. But I really advise, and people who know the work of Mavis Gallant would advise everyone to read her stories. They are absolutely gorgeous, the stories of Mavis, absolutely, yes. Yes, so.
Will you read a few passages?
Oh, I would like to read a few passages, yes, thank you so much. And I will, I will do that. So,
for those of us who were there at many of those events, it really brought back amazing memories. I can speak to that. And what I found about the book, Odile, is that you could skip around to different. I could skip to different sections and read.
Yes,
Read about the
exactly.
events that
Yes,
I
exactly.
attended.
Yes,
and
yes,
skip
yes.
the others if I wanted to.
Yeah, no, exactly. This is a book that you
I
don't
mean,
have to read
yeah, you
one
don't
after
have to,
the other.
it's not chronological.
No, and you can
Right.
really skip, and you can, but still,
Move
it is
around.
it is organized or structured in such a way that you would have, for instance, 4 parts. And I will have a parenthesis here.
Okay.
At the beginning, my book was I conceived my books as 5 parts. And okay, fine, nothing was said about that, 5 parts. And suddenly, it was imposed on me 4 parts. So I reacted, I said, what's happening? And what's happening is very interesting because also it reflects the time. And I am very much, memories for me are very important. And I feel that all history or literature is memories. So I knew that I wanted a chapter on memory. And I had the chapter on African Americans, on Native Americans, on the chapter on the Holocaust, the chapter on exile, were the 4 in one book, in one chapter, in one part. And suddenly I receive a note from my editor, une femme, Noah, and she tells me, Odile, you are segregating American writers. Segregating? Me segregating? I mean, it's impossible. Odile, they are American writers, and you are putting them aside. No. And so it became, the voices were not lost, but it became, 4 parts. And they did it very well. There is we don't see, how they did it, and it's very well. It's very well done. I don't have to reproach them anything, but it reflects the time that everything, the words, had to be exactly, for what the time was, like even 2 years ago or 3 years ago, So this was interesting. So, but each part has a theme. For instance, the part where Dennis is, it's the theme of the new English, the new Anglophone literatures, that came up, after the what came up with the 2000s, the new writings. Even though the stories were written much before, but for me they were part of the Indian writers, the new Indian writers, the new Canadian writers, the new Australian writers, and then South Africa a little bit aside, because South Africa did not come directly from the Commonwealth, so it was a little bit different. So I explained this, how different it was. And so yes, it's the parts where, first part it was the people living in Paris. The second part was traveled through all the American writers at the time. So it was the 30 years of American writing. The third part was the fourth part. Well, the third part were those voices, and the third the voices, and the fourth part was poetry, where I have Marilyn in the poetry, and the poetry. There were so many poets in France at the time, American poets, in many. And how to choose all those poets, and also those who were coming from the States or from England even. So how to choose them, to select them. So I decided that we would choose the people who were in Paris, and we were so lucky because they were and praised and prized. So they had received the prizes, and they were extraordinary. So this was the 4 parts. yes. And so what was your question? I don't remember.
Me either. No, but it's interesting that, I mean, I just feel that Paris is a magnet for writers, and that maybe the literature is more well respected here than it is in the United States, and therefore writers have more of an opportunity because literature is so much more respected, especially poetry.
In France? Too black?
I mean, you know,
No. Certainly literature as such, I think, is maybe more respected here, and certainly when I read Le Monde des Livres or the book supplement in Midi, there is much more thoughtful coverage of many kinds of books, but contemporary French poetry is just absolutely ignored. And not that there's an enormous amount of attention paid to poetry in British or American papers, but in British papers especially, contemporary poetry gets much more attention than contemporary
definitely.
French poetry ever gets in any French newspapers, certainly.
and I'm just speaking of I'm speaking of the American writers, especially the African American writers, who were maybe more well respected here than in the U.S.
Yes. Well, yes, probably. I don't know, but
I wouldn't say so.
No?
No.
And certainly not now. When I think African American writers are fortunately
Are exploding now.
Extremely well respected. Whereas a person who translated Rita Dove's poems, and she was poet laureate of the United States at the time, couldn't get a book of hers published here. So
no.
and it
This
wasn't
is
because she was black or a woman. It was because it was poetry.
yeah.
Of course.
This is perhaps it was true at the time of the Village Voice, in the times of the Village, because it seems to me that the new writers who came up, who were discovered, not in the States but here in Paris, they were writers that suddenly changed, the situation in Paris at the time. Because, as I said, the bookstores were filled with, Anglophone books, but no American books when those writers were already flourishing in the States. And you could not find them in those bookstores at the time. And suddenly you had K.R. Carver, Richard Ford, Russell Banks, all these people. Suddenly they were grabbed by the French publishers. And in the 90s, definitely you would enter a bookstore, and they were on the tables. They were the translations of those writers, and before it did not exist. And also in the 90s, it was the literature was so rich, the American literature was so rich, that it is in those years, a little bit, 90s and beginning of the century, that Francis Geffard, a French publisher, set up his Festival America. And it has been going on until this day. I mean, the number of people you have there, Americans, Canadians, Europeans, French, it's amazing. And it started at that time. So there was, for me, before it was the lost generation, and it was, with young people there, and for a decade it was really what it was. But then suddenly, there was that explosion of literatures, of American literatures, and that were also supported by the French publishers. And the French publishers we were talking about it a little bit, back, and the French publishers are the ones, starting in the 90s, who brought me a lot of writers. They were publishing the writers in French. And now they were saying, Odile, we come with the translator. And you had readings with someone presenting the author and God knows if Denis presented many authors at the Village Voice. So presenting the author, and then you had the translator, you had the author reading a piece, and then you had the translator reading the French. You know, so it
You
was
did that with David Sedaris
we
one time.
did that,
That's
yeah,
right.
sure, several times. We did that. So it was a period, very good period. You know, the 90s and the 2000s with the new literatures coming from the Commonwealth. But you know, for Denis, it was not the Commonwealth; it was something else. Denis, you have something to say? Yes.
May I say something? Adrian?
Yes.
Certainly.
Firstly, I think it's so wonderful that you've invited Odile here this afternoon. I really think that we all need to thank you for that.
Oh,
I know, I thank Odile.
I thank her too.
The second thing is, for me personally, and I think for so many people who were at the Village Voice, the one quality of that bookshop that stood out for us was its conviviality.
Yes.
This is something that Odile encouraged, that she nourished. You can even
I want you to have the microphone. Okay. So you now have to repeat. Just start over. Oh, we want to hear this.
No, I'm just saying that conviviality is something that Odile nourished, encouraged at the Village Voice, and that we all benefited from. You've said so, Adrian, and this was the case not only for the people who were invited to present their books, but also for the members of the audience. We all felt this fiber in the air, and you can feel it even here today when she introduces us and when she passes down her papers, that there is this aspect of sharing which she's so good at and which we've all remember. And I think it's particularly important at this time when we're all isolated behind screens day after day and hour after hour, that in a bookshop one should find this quality and that we're hungry for it. Yeah. And that's what I wanted to say, but as a question, Odile, we've heard again about your life. I've heard you speak about your life a lot, but it just strikes me today to ask you, where is it in your growing up that you had this sense that you needed a place of conviviality, not only of books, but books plus the conviviality that you were such a great midwife of?
Yeah. I do know why. In fact, I do know why, because I think a lot about it. You know that, I like to share. That's for sure. I like to share, and I don't know, because I feel that if you like something or if you think about something, you have to have other people to share. I mean, even if the person is not does not agree with me, that's okay, But I need that. I know that it is in me, and this comes from my mother. From my mother, who was an extraordinary person, really. And the more I go on, and the more I feel that my mother has been an extraordinary, delicate person, having so many problems in her life, and yet. My sister was like me, even more. My brother as well. So it is in the family. It is in the family. There is no doubt about it. It is not me, but it is something that I was born with, definitely. So I would not know. I would not be able to say anything else, because I see all the examples, of my mother's life. And for instance, there were people in the town, Saint-Brieuc, that needed to be taken care of, or like coming from elsewhere, all the time. La mairie would turn to my mother and say, Madame Hellier, c'est seulement chez vous qu'on peut dire que cette personne peut être accueillie. So, this, we were used to that. We were used to that, sharing, giving, not me, but my mother. And when my path, was so zigzag, it was zigzag, I never heard a single time, never, ever, never heard my mother say, Odile, are you sure? No, she always let me do what I wanted to do. And never any questions, never anything. And this, when I think about it, I am not sure that I would have been that person. No, I'm sure, because she never questioned anything.
But
yeah.
what you said is so true, because it wasn't, for me, and who else knows the Village Voice? You probably know the Village Voice. You know
Yes,
the
yes,
Village
yes, of
Voice?
course, yes.
It was not a bookstore, it was a community.
Yeah,
When there
yes.
was an event, everyone came and we packed ourselves in, and it almost didn't matter who was speaking. There was just so much energy. You could feel the energy in the room. And we would crouch on the steps.
Oh yeah, yes, of course, yes, of course.
Right,
yes.
to try to see
Yeah.
down,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
right,
yeah,
and
yeah.
then people would stand outside and schmooze forever, and nobody wanted to go home, and right, and that's just the way it was.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
And, I think about it. For me, it was normal at the time, completely normal. And now, as I go on, with the world in which we live now, I say, well, no, it was, fantastic, that we were all together, we did not criticize the others, we were
No.
opening, And also, I remember never rejecting a person who was asking me to talk, and even if it was a week, a bit difficult, we find always a time. But this, of course, is owing to the people I had as well working with me. And for instance, Michael, Michael, was a person. I am not sure that I would have been able to be so open and always present in the bookstore without Michael, because Michael was an extraordinary person as well, and with a lot of humor, and he helped a lot, more than help. He was part of the Village Voice. It was, the skin of the Village
Will
Voice.
you
yes.
read? Will
Yes,
you read?
yes,
for
yes,
us?
yes, yes. Yeah. For
We're
instance,
dying to hear it.
yeah, okay. So, for instance, it will be very, very short pieces. So, for instance, louder, louder. Yeah. Okay, I will. And this is from Don DeLillo. Don DeLillo, who was an author who is still alive, and who came once at the Village Voice. And I'm going to read just a little piece. He was presenting Mao Tzu. DeLillo stood up and started to read the opening chapter of Mao Tzu. It's called At Yankee Stadium. In a low, matter-of-fact voice, he carefully detailed an actual and terrifying scene of a compact crowd of 6,500 people, all followers of the Moon sect, standing in line and waiting their turn to be married by its guru leader. This depiction introduces the core issue of the novel, the disappearance of the individual into faceless and brainwashed crowds, and along with this phenomenon, the disappearance of literature. Its central protagonist, Bill Gray, journalist and secluded writer, refuses to publish at a time when it is no longer possible for a novelist to alter the inner life of the culture, and when news of disaster is the only narrative people need. And I feel that this is a kind of things that authors were telling us, and I have a few more like that. And for me, the authors, and this is why I really wanted to have a book and not a podcast somewhere. I wanted to have a book because each author was really connected with another author in terms of their ideas, in terms of their thinking, in terms of their admiration for beauty, in terms of the taste for literature. They had the ear as well, So the second piece I would like to read, is Terry Tempest Williams. And Terry Tempest Williams, she has a word to describe herself. My medium has been Earth, and she speaks a lot about the Earth and about ecology. Terry lived in South Utah, which she described as having the most beautiful scenery with 5 national parks, red rocks, canyons rising up, and yet there were 45,000 trucks crossing that fragile desert. So much had been destroyed, including laws to expedite this oil, or to destroy, to eliminate prairie dogs. Do you know what a prairie dog is? It's like a small squirrels, yeah, a kind of squirrels, yes. An endangered species, fated to extinction. We have forgotten how useful they are. Following the stampede hooves of the buffaloes, the prairie dogs stir the soil so as to let the rain soak through, maintaining it fertile. Destroy prairie dogs, you destroy a varied world. And Terry strongly affirmed the extermination of a species and the extermination of the people is calculated on the same input, which is prejudice, cruelty, arrogance, and ignorance. If we cannot begin to see the world as a whole, we'll continue to see the world fragmented, fractured, the seedbed of wars. You know, how these people talk to us today. I mean, it's amazing. Sometimes, you know, like
We're going through that this very moment.
No, but this is you know what I say. It is absolutely amazing. You know, I've reread the book and I feel that every page, you know, talks to us today. You know, and so there is another one.
You have a section on Jim Haynes, correct?
No, I don't.
But
We are going to speak about him. Yeah, I have a section in my book. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, but not to talk about
Okay.
it now. Yeah, no. He was very well known, Jim, and he was a star. This was a star.
He was a
This is
star, yes.
He was a star, and he had a house where every Sunday night he had the world coming to his home.
Everyone
You
know who Jim Haynes was?
You remember? You remember him?
Jim Haynes
Yes,
Sunday
yes,
night
yes.
dinners?
Yes. So,
48 years he did this, I think.
Yeah. Amazing.
Some
No, he was an
outrageous stuff.
amazing person. Amazing. And he's in the book. He's part of the book and so on because he published quite a few things and so on. Oh, no, he's in the book, definitely. And so,
He created a world passport.
yes, exactly. And I remember his little books when it was impossible to go to Russia and to go to the European, Eastern European countries. He had already all his little books. You can sleep there in that country. You can sleep there in that country. So he was giving. You knew him very well.
Of course.
Very well. Those books were absolutely groundbreaking before the internet.
Yeah, exactly.
Published, you know, like the Baltic republics, people.
Yeah.
So anyone he wanted to in the Baltic Republic to put their name down, and you know, if you were, say, American or English, you could look them up and write to them and stay with them.
Yeah.
free.
Yes.
Sleeping on the couch. Sleeping on the
Yeah,
couch.
sleep on
Yeah,
the couch. And
yeah,
the deal
yeah.
was then when they went to your country,
Yeah.
they could sleep at your place for free.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
Jim
yeah.
just thought this
Yeah,
up
yeah,
very
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
You can.
yes.
Well, there is a documentary about him. We can certainly write a book
Yeah,
about it. That's for
and it's
sure.
a very good documentary. It's a
Uh-huh,
very,
very
good
good.
documentary. Very good. So another one I felt like reading. Excuse me, there. Yes. Something a little bit different, but I'm still very moved each time I read her. It's Adrian Rich. Okay, Adrian Rich. And Adrian Rich came to the Village Voice to read, of course, and I received a letter from her a little sometime after she went back home. But also, I have to say that when you spoke about Adrian Rich, or you named her Adrian Rich, the number of people who knew her from the 80s, 70s, 60s, and she was a woman extremely admired for who she was. I mean, she was not just a fantastic poet. You know, I even brought here you know, one of her books that I love so much, and it is
There it is.
yeah, and it is also speaks to us today, you know, in a fantastic way. The School Among the Ruins. You remember that? Yeah, it's absolutely extraordinary. So I bought it because it talks to you so much today. Yes. So anyway, so this one is a postcard I received from her when she was back back to her place. Yeah. A few weeks after the re-election of George W. Bush, Adrian sent me a postcard dated November 29, 2004, conveying the atmosphere of the country at that particular moment and her own sadness. It is a time when one would gladly think oneself outside the US, or the grotesque profile of what calls itself culture here and now. Yet, there is something else, partly invisible, partly confused perhaps, the end of illusions, of adolescence egotism, but it is coming at a huge price for the vulnerable of the world. One writes, one reads, one speaks, one remembers dreams that were not, and she underlined, not illusions, and tries to reimagine them. This is also amazing. And then to finish this, it will be some words by Susan Sontag, who was a fantastic person as well, Susan, and very, very generous. This woman was at the top of the world and so generous. For instance, I was so shy. I did not dare to ask her. She was coming often to the Village Voice with friends, always with friends. But I did not dare, you know, to ask her, oh, Susan, would you like? And she came to me and said, Odile, I would love to read at your bookstore. That day I felt that it was, you know, so, I mean, I was really, so she came several times, she read, and here is a little piece, because the book she presented at the end at the Village Voice was a book about how to write, how to be a writer. So here it's more about what it is to be a writer, and a very small piece, where is it? I believe
You've met so many incredible
I know,
people.
incredible.
I am so jealous.
Yeah, no, well, no, we all meet, you know, people, but you know, well, it's what it is. You have to recognize them to know that they are fantastic, because people don't talk. When we meet people, we don't talk, and we don't know what's inside. So this book, we know a little bit what is inside those people, their lives, how they think, how they are with other people, you know. And so this one, Sontag, it was, someone asked her, what do you feel when you write? Good question. To write feels as if I were rowing my frail boat to the very big ocean. And that ocean is made up of words, language, fragments of words. It's a great adventure, a great challenge. Writing is a tremendous journey in which you get lost. Yes, lost. Sailing his frail Chinese junk, Halliburton had disappeared in the Pacific Ocean. And this is a character that she mentions in her book, or in her books even, that she read when she was young, and it was a seafarer, and he was, going through those seas, and it happened in China, and her parents at the time were in China, so she was herself in China. So this Halliburton book had been very important to her. And so writing fiction was no different from a risky seafaring journey. It was the great and challenging adventure of the mental traveler. You know, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic, yeah. So I believe
What a
that-
fabulous image that is.
Yeah, yes.
It's
So
so
I thought,
true,
yeah,
too.
yeah. And then perhaps in the last one, perhaps it was.
Yeah, then I
Richard-
have a big question.
Yeah, okay, the Richard Ford, yes, Richard Ford, very short as well. Where did I put it? Richard Ford on the Lilo, Richard Ford is after. Like in the middle. Richard Ford, where did I put it? Remarkable women. Voilà, okay, this here. Richard Ford, normally it's at the end. Yes, okay. So Richard Ford, I mean, you know him, he's still writing, he's still published, and very well-known writer. Who, you know, he was a very close friend of Carver, so you see a little bit Carver. You know, they had something inside, you know, a lot of things inside, you know, and sharing as well, you know. And so Richard Ford concluded a stimulating discussion with this reflection on the relationship between the novel and the reader. I think that novels are supposed to bring you, the reader, back to your own life with a great sense of its importance. And this is accomplished by having the characters pay attention to life and their thinking brought to you through language. This is also was something, you know. And you know, the whole book is filled with little things like that. But you know,
So these are some of the things that they actually said in their talks.
Yes.
That you got from the tapes.
From the tapes, absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. I read the books before they came, but you know, it is the tapes, and you know, I am not quoting you here, but but Dennis has extraordinary. I mean, they give us extraordinary talks at the Village Voice, and the people were, you know, everyone was there. Everyone was
So,
there to listen
Odile?
to him.
Why did you close the bookstore?
Yeah. This is a good question. Yeah.
We were
that's a good
very
question.
sad.
Yeah, that's a good question. The thing that was that started it, it's when Amazon, of course, came up.
Amazon.
And Amazon, it was not the same Amazon as today, because now it's huge. They don't have to promote and so on. But I remember, for instance, I had a very important reading with a historian, American historian, and he spoke about not just the Paris of the 20s, but the Paris much before, with all the what happened in terms of historical people and so on. And I knew that book had gotten a lot of reviews, and I knew that I had to have many copies of that. It was coming, and many copies. And you know, the person, you know, the visitor, you know, the persons who visit the bookstores, the booksellers, representative, was there, and I said I would like to have 50 copies of this book minimum, hardcover, and I said, but what kind of a discount you can give me? And she told me the discount she could give me. And I said, do you mind if I check on the computer how, you know, Amazon is publishing this book, is really, you know, like promoting this book. It was much before, you know, the book came out, of course, because we have to order before the book came out. And I looked, and she was there, and I said, look, they were selling the book to customers less than she was selling me the book to the buyer, you know, to the.
So Amazon was totally undercutting you.
Okay, so it was all the time. I could check all the time. The second thing is that when not the iPhone, because it did not exist, but the smartphone started to arrive on the market. It's amazing how many people, not many people, I do not want to exaggerate, but it was horrible for me. how people would open their phone, and they had already, the phone, at Amazon, their phone at Amazon, and some their things at Amazon, and they would look at the book, and before our eyes, order the book to Amazon.
While in the bookstore.
While in the bookstore. And this made me cry. It made me cry, really. And we go on. And so another thing that was very difficult, I had been very, very lucky with Stephen, Stephen. And Stephen, who was an agent in New York, brought many top people at the Village Voice. And owing to him. And so I could feel that, I was a small bookshop and I was not selling as much as a Fnac or as much, And so to send a great writer to a bookshop, which is not going to sell as much as they expect from that bookshop, because it's a gift they give you, to have this person. It's a gift to you. So if you cannot, respond to that gift, and so I could feel that it was declining and declining and declining and declining. And plus another thing, we had many people from abroad. And these people did not find books in their country or in their countries. And they would, each time they would be in Paris, pass through Paris, they would come to the Village Voice and they were buying books, many books. And we had to send them by post, to send them. And they were big packages. But, by post, okay, but also by mail. They wanted to take them sometimes with them, to the plane,
Right.
And the planes, became very expensive to have, heavy stuff.
luggage.
Very luggage
Right.
became very expensive. While before it was okay, you have a baggage and you put it there. And now it is not possible, as you know, all of you, So this also, reduced, our possibilities.
The book sales.
The book sales, exactly.
Right.
And so I was turning 70. And it's true that the age also played a part, and but I did not know how to really do it. I mean, I really did not know how to do it. It was a crève-cœur, as we say in French. It was really difficult.
Heartbreak.
And
Is that a
heartbreak,
crève-cœur?
yes,
Heartbreak?
her heartbreak. And I knew that probably, if I were to work 5 more years, it would have been so small now. So I could feel it, and that I would not have the strength to really get all things out of the bookshop, to deal with administration, because you deal with a lot of different things when you stop something. And I could feel that it was, and also I believe that, I am not sure that I thought about it, but I'm sure that I knew that I had big archive and I had to take care of it, that big archive. And I wanted to send it to archives, literary archives and audio archives. But while listening to the tapes, we come back to the beginning, while listening to the tapes, I felt that I could not get separated from those.
How did you divest of the inventory? Did you had a sale, right? You had a book sale at the end.
Yes, we had.
Right.
Yes. So I believe
There was a big party for the closing too, right?
The big party. I
Party.
have plenty.
Yes.
If you go to my site, I have a site, and you will have all the photos of the big party. Yes, so everyone is there and so on. Yeah, it was a big party. And yes, but joyous.
It was a joyous party?
Yeah, joyous party.
We were, celebrating
it was celebrating. And I believe that no one was moody. Everyone was there. No, it was a joyous party. Not for me.
Not for you.
Not for me, but still, it's. I knew that there was an end to it. And now that I was starting the book, and I even did not know whether I should write it in French or in English. And Dennis told me, Odile, but you have to write it in English. Do you remember? Okay. So, you know, it was a lot of work for me. It was a lot of work. Listening
phone is that?
and listening to tapes and then transcribing and then selecting. It was a big job. So I'm very happy that I did it and that the memoir is there because
And this way it lives on.
It-
For
yeah.
us, the bookshop lives on.
for me too, because I often, you know, go back to the book myself, you know. So for me too, it lives on, and those people, I mean, the writers and the people who were there in the audience, they are in my life. I mean, they continue to be in my life. There is no doubt about it. Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, yes.
Are you open to Q&A? Questions? Anybody have questions?
Yes, of course, of course.
John.
How many books have you read? How many books do you own? How many books have you sold? And what's your best-selling book ever?
Oh, that's an interesting question.
Interesting
Four
question.
questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, four questions.
Yeah.
How many
Yeah.
books have you read?
John's an author,
yeah.
by the way.
How many do you own?
Yeah, yeah.
Of
Okay,
course.
Have you
my
sold and your bestseller?
I have friends here who can testify, who know that the place is filled with books, and I have up to the ceiling, and sometimes I feel. Ooh,
Have you
like
ever
that, you know.
counted?
No, never counted, because like each time I want to get rid of a book, I said no, I cannot. He's a friend. He's a friend.
No,
I
of
cannot.
course not.
No, I cannot. So it's a friend. Not because he's a friend. In reality, that the book is a friend to me. The book, what the book says, is a friend. And how many times did I think of starting to do clearance, of my apartment, and each time I said no, I cannot. I mean, it's impossible. I cannot. So I don't know. I have nephews, and I already told them, it will be your job, not mine.
How many do you think you've sold?
How many books I sold? I would not be able to say, because I am not interested in this.
What was the
She paid
best-selling
no
book?
attention.
The best
What
selling,
sold the most?
yeah, but there were many, I would say Mendelssohn, perhaps. Mendelssohn, perhaps was the one.
Madison?
Mendelssohn.
Oh, Mendelssohn.
Mendelssohn. I believe it could be Mendelssohn,
Wow.
perhaps.
I wouldn't have thought.
The Lost, yes, the Lost, and it was about a trip it took to Ukraine, but at the time it was not called Ukraine, and where one part of his family disappeared in the Holocaust, and it was an extraordinary travel. Traveling he did, like the people he interviewed, how he discovered the reality, what had been hidden by the family that we did not know about. It's only when the person died that the letters that he had in his pockets, were found and so on. So he explained all this, and also, I did not put something dealing with the Holocaust, in the presentation. But the reality is that he had two travels there. He traveled twice, and he could not find anything at all. He would interview. He could not find anything, and suddenly, he was able to find that little pearl. That sad pearl. Find through just a detail. And it is the detail that made the book, And this was also something that he explained, at length, how a detail can be the starting of something.
The seed, the pearl,
the
seed, yeah.
seed, exactly, So this, and probably because the Holocaust was very much in the air at the time, everyone was working about the Holocaust, and we have many good pieces about the Second World War and in Paris also, the Second World War in Paris with Alan Riding, for instance, and other writers, and this was very much in the air, and everyone wanted you really to have those books, and so probably I would say Mendelssohn, yeah. Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Anybody else?
And what else? What else you said? What else? No, do you have?
John had the 4 questions.
Yeah,
I think.
yeah.
Yeah, I think
That was good.
he was good. He was
Okay.
good. He was good.
Okay. Okay.
So these bookshops, these community places to gather with books and had heart and soul for the area, for the people that came, and for the people to go and to escape and to read and to find knowledge. And do you think that this is possible now in the same way as in this age? How do you see
I
it?
There's one
believe.
right next door. It's a
Yeah,
French
yeah,
bookshop.
exactly,
Okay.
exactly,
Yes.
exactly,
Right, right. I mean,
exactly.
bookshops are,
No,
I mean, we lost
I
them
believe
too.
there was a period when I left was a dead period. It was really difficult. We did not know where we were going, really. But now I feel that there are many bookstores that are opening, and they specialize in this and that and this and that, and also they have coffee like I did at the Village Voice, coffee the corner, where you can have some coffee, some pieces of
It's rejuvenated
it's
in a way.
and it's coming back. But whether those young people, usually they are young people, whether they survive, this I would not know. This I would not know, because some bookstores survive very well, but you have to have support behind the bookstore, and the support is not that easy. So, for instance, for me, when I was a bookseller, I thought I could benefit from the public money that was going to bookstores, But when I talked to the publishers, and I said, well, why is it that I don't get this from the government? They said, but Odile, we publishers, contribute to that money. So it's up to your American publishers to contribute to it, So forget it. So you see, so if you are French, you have possibilities. You have also loans. You have they help. But
Well, and I see, mainly since I've been in Bordeaux and in Paris and in France, the youth, the young girls and boys sitting at the cafes with a real book.
yeah, yes.
And it always makes me stop and look, and I think that was the way that it was. And you sat and you read, and then you discussed what you were reading. And I wonder if that can be, in this digital age, if that can be captured again. Or I see in Paris and France. And
Well, you have Shakespeare & Co. that does that.
Yeah.
And you have as well in the States, you have bookstores, Politics and Prose does it. At the time, it was not Politics and Prose. They came after, but I left the States. But no, you have bookstores who try to do that. But c'est un grand combat. Because, when you think of all the large stores, big stores, who can sell, thousands of books without thinking twice about, you have to sell that book. As a small bookstore, you have to be there. You have to have read that book. You have to know what you are speaking about, what you are selling. This is the big difference. And time is time. And you read, like this gentleman also, you read at night. How many books you read? I read at night. Thank God I don't sleep much. No, it's my nature. It's my nature. I don't sleep much. But
And I was going to say, there's from Anglophone bookshop, there's a Red Wheelbarrow.
the Red Wheelbarrow, absolutely, yeah.
And she
Yes. No, absolutely. They are in Paris. They are in
Small
Paris.
independent shops with
Yeah,
right.
they are still there. But it's a real fight. And the fight can go so long without seeing the end of the tunnel. That when you have to present people, know their books, and be there, present, and really enjoy it yourself, it takes a lot of. I did only that, for 30 years. I did only that, and I did not travel. I did not do anything else. I had family problems that I had to take care of, but still, I was all the time, comme on dit en français, sur le pont. Definitely. So you know, in big you know, bookstores, you know, you have a person who has not even read the book, you know, but they will sell it anyway because it has been, you know, advertised in the papers, you know. So this is the difference, yeah. So, okay.
Yeah,
so-
but before
so-
we end, Odile had, this is my copy, okay? Okay, I happen to have a few on the shelf. But she has she has about 10 books with
Yeah,
her.
yeah,
She's here, she'll sign them. They're 20 euros each. Do not let her leave with any, please. I mean, this is how we support our
good.
authors. It's really important, okay, that we we
Thank you.
support them, and
you.
this is a small way to do that.
Thank you.
So, where would you like to set up and sign them and sell them?
Wherever at a table.
And a
yeah,
table here,
yes,
anywhere
yes,
you'd like.
Yes, okay.
And
yes.
I want to thank everyone for being here, but I also,
Yeah,
I
thank
really
you.
want to thank Odile.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Absolutely amazing.
Thank you so much.